We have jumped down to the May-June 2017 paper. Items 1 through 5, instructions. Each sentence in this section has one underlined word or phrase. Choose from the 4 suggested answers the word or phrase which is closest to opposite in meaning to the underlined word or phrase. So we're looking for opposites here. Number 1, we found her appreciative of the help that we had given her on this matter. This one's clearly C. The opposite of being appreciative is being ungrateful for. If you appreciate something, then you're grateful. So the opposite is being ungrateful for. Number 2, while the employers approved of his work habits, they objected to his radical views. So radical means extreme, wild, crazy. So the opposite of that has to be conservative. In other words, old-fashioned or modest. Number 3, at the sound of the bell, the lower forms went reluctantly back to their classrooms. Of course, if you're reluctant, then you don't really want to do something, you're unwilling, you're kind of moving slow. So the opposite of this is willingly. If you're willing, you're not reluctant. Number 4, the guest speaker's address was devoid of humor, and this made persons uneasy. To be devoid of something means it lacks something entirely. So the opposite of lacking is being full of something. Full of. So A. Number 5. As a result of the available evidence, the accused was apprehended and no further action was taken. Alright, so if you're apprehended, you're taken in, you're arrested. The opposite of that is being released. Okay, items 6 through 10. Each sentence has either 1 or 2 words missing. Choose from the 4 options the word or pair of words that best completes the meaning of the sentence. Number 6. Despite his being somewhat short-tempered, his willingness to give of his wealth to help others to succeed led people to call him. And you might remember from the 2016 paper, this has to be benevolent. Yeah, benevolent means generous. And if he's willing to give people money, then he must be benevolent. 7. When parents display as something for one child, the others are likely to feel. And this is another repeat question from the previous year. We know it's preference and jealous. When parents display a preference for one child, if you prefer one child, if you have a favorite, the others are likely to feel jealous. Number 8, an attack on someone. Oh, this is another repeat question, 3 in a row. An attack on someone when that person is most vulnerable, maybe, but is always. And we know it's maybe effective, but is always unkind. Wow, another repeat question in the same order, 4 in a row. This is why it's important. Well, this is one of the reasons why it's so important to drill your past papers. You're very likely to see familiar questions on the exam. While the committee members something insults across the floor, the chairman tried in vain to something order. And I'm sure you remember the answer is A. Hurl comments, restore order. Number 10. Are you trying to dash that all along he knew of the plot to oust the committee? To oust means to expel or remove, but we don't even need to know what this means because the answer is clearly insinuate. This is the only possible answer. Are you trying to insinuate or are you trying to imply? Are you trying to say without saying? Basically. Items 11 to 15. Each sentence in this section is followed by 4 sentences, A, B, C, and D. Choose the sentence nearest in meaning to the original sentence. Mary still wanted to marry John, even though he had lost all his money. Our answer is B. The loss of all John's money did not affect Mary's wish to marry him. This is basically saying the same thing as this. Let's eliminate the others. A. Mary agreed to marry John, although he had lost all his money. It never said that Mary agreed to marry him. It said that Mary still wanted to marry him. C. John's money did not matter to Mary. It didn't say that John's money did not matter. She just wanted to marry him regardless of the money. And Mary intended to marry John even if he were to lose his money. Nope, not if he were to lose his money, even though he had lost all his money. 12, and this is another repeat question. No right-thinking person who has lived in the country will fail to understand my disgust at noise. Our answer is C. My disgust at noise will be understood by any right-thinking person who has lived in the country. 13, another repeat question. The young of the country need to organize themselves into cooperatives in order to support the Prime Minister's drive for self-sufficiency. C. The youth should show their support for the Prime Minister's plan for self-sufficiency by organizing themselves into cooperatives. And I won't be doing much explanation for the ones that I would have explained previously. 14. Realizing that her suitcase was left on the bus, the woman desperately tried to attract the conductor's attention. Your answer B. The woman became aware of the fact that she no longer had her suitcase and did her best to catch the attention of the bus conductor. Same meaning, essentially. So let's eliminate the others. When the desperate woman realized that she was leaving the bus without her suitcase, we can pause there. She didn't realize that she was leaving her bus without the suitcase. In this sentence, she had already left the bus. So that's out. The woman made all attempts to attract the conductor's attention to the suitcase which she had left on the bus. Nope, not to the suitcase. The conductor's attention was attracted. Nope, she tried, but we don't see where it was attracted. 15. And this is another one that I will not be explaining because we did it last time. The Europeans who were not well off were those who came to the West Indies in search of wealth. Answer D. 16 through 20. Some of the following sentences are unacceptable because of inappropriate grammar, idiom, or vocabulary. Some sentences are acceptable as they stand. No sentence contains more than one inappropriate element. That's a lie, CSEC. Select the one underlined part that you feel is inappropriate and choose the corresponding letter, A, B, C. If the sentence is acceptable as it stands, choose D. We should be used to this by now. Number 16. We could reach the survivors neither by boat or by plane, and so we abandoned our search as futile. Okay, B. Or should be nor, neither, nor, either or, neither nor, either or, neither nor. 17. I formed the brilliant idea of climbing the fence and to hang from the top of the rail until the bull went away. Okay, this was difficult to read. That's how bad this error is. I formed the brilliant idea of climbing the post and hanging from the top of the rail. Tense change in the middle of the sentence. 18. She was not feeling well at the beginning of the journey, and sitting at the front of the car made her feel worse. No error. You might be looking at C, but worse is correct here. Made her feel worse. Worst would have been incorrect. Worse is okay. So no error here. 19. My ambition is to have a good job and to further my studies at one of the more prestigious universities. This is a little tricky because one of the more might seem odd, but there's actually no error here. One of the more prestigious, you might be saying, but it should be one of the most because there are more than just two. But you can say one of the more if it is that you want to be a bit modest in how you're speaking, or if you're not necessarily aiming specifically for one of the top universities, but just a university that is decently prestigious. So maybe not top 5, but maybe top 20. One of the more prestigious universities. So D, no error. 20. The better of the two athletes claimed never to have used the dangerous drugs found in his possession. CSEC loves these subject-verb agreement problems. Claim. The better of the two athletes claims. The better of the two, this is a singular subject because it's only one athlete that's being referred to. The better of the two is one athlete. One athlete claims never to have used. So we're on to a bad day. By the way, guys, I hope you're not having a bad day. So let's read and answer items 21 through 30. So many questions on this short passage. And remember, we're looking at not just what is stated, but also what is implied. A bad day. I cannot smile today, nor be pleasant today. I do not like people today, and particularly hate children today. Today I am sad. Today I am mad. At everybody and everything. I hurt today. I can't love today, nor see beauty today. I wish the wind away. No, I can't be happy today. I looked down the future today, and began to die today. As usual, we have the passage on the left, the questions on the right. Number 21. Which of the following is not true of the poet today? Answer B. She cannot be sad today. This is not true because she's obviously sad. She's sad here and she's sad in this entire extract. We can also eliminate the rest. She cannot smile. Is that true? That's true in the first line. She does not love children. We see that she hates children. She cannot see beauty. I can't love nor see beauty. So this is the only one that is not true. 22. Which of the following words best describes the poet's mood? Okay, so how is the poet feeling? Jovial is out. Could be anxious, reflective, not so much, kinda, but this wouldn't be the main mood. The poet is actually feeling melancholic. Melancholy is that deep, reflective sadness. You're just sad about everything, depressed about everything, and obviously this speaker is extremely sad, very depressed. Not just anxious, but melancholic. This is more extreme than anxious. 23. The word particularly in line 4 is nearest in meaning to. Very easy, especially. Yeah. No explanation needed, I believe. 24. Which of the following is an example of alliteration? Of course, alliteration is the repetition of the beginning consonant sound across words in close proximity. We see no repetition here of note, nothing here, Wish the wind away. See. Let's move down to 25. The poet repeats the word today for emphasis. The poet is emphasizing that she feels sad, she feels depressed now, today. This is a current feeling. It's not something she felt in the past. It's not something she anticipates feeling in the future. It's something that she's grappling with at this moment. She's emphasizing by repeating. Usually, repetition leads to emphasis. Usually, the speakers might repeat something to emphasize. 26. The words nor see beauty in line 10 mean that the poet cannot it's a giveaway, appreciate anything. The poet cannot see beauty. They cannot appreciate anything around them. They cannot recognize the value of anything. 27. I looked down the future today. Line 14 is an example of okay, it's a metaphor because the speaker isn't literally looking down the future. You can't actually see the future by looking at it in a literal sense. So it's metaphorical language. And you can actually eliminate these, no as or like. Definitely not onomatopoeia, and the future isn't the one looking. So it has to be B. 28. The poet began to die in line 15, probably because obviously future events did not look promising. Nothing about the weather here or her anger. Too many people, what is this even talking about? So yeah, future events did not look promising. We see that the future looks dull. And we can see that she looked down the future. So while looking into the future, imagining, thinking about the future, she could not see any hope. 29. The mood of the poem can best be described as depressing. It's the only real answer here. It's a very depressing poem. It cannot be peaceful or sarcastic. Apprehensive is it's not close, but it's a second place answer. It's depressing. 30. The poet's intention is to express her state of being. Throughout the entire poem, the poet is just telling us how she feels, what she's experiencing. She's not showing us her dislike of children in the entire poem. In fact, she hates children just today. Today she's feeling this way, and so now she hates children especially. But the entire poem is not about hating children. Demonstrates her hatred for people? Nope. Today maybe she hates everyone and everything, and she's definitely not encouraging herself. So express her state of being. That is the poet's intention. Okay, and we are done with our bad day. Next we move to this extract here. Another extract that appears on a few past papers. Don't take it to heart, shark. Life's got plenty lessons to teach you yet, partner. This bush does reduce you to an animal, and then you got to fight your way back to prove you're a man. You better get moving, and don't let sundown catch you before you reach Nameless River. I left half of my supplies with Bulla and the tonic, poured boiling hot water into the barrel of my rifle, tested the action of the bolt, and set out. I knew Bulla and tonic were watching me, but I didn't look back. I walked quickly, feeling my prospecting knife slapping against my thigh. The forest darkened, and my footsteps sounded loud under the tall trees. I wasn't afraid of animals or snakes, and for the first time, I felt certain that I would overtake my uncle and Santos. The only fear I knew was for the thing I was about to do with no witness but God and the forest trees. But this fear was remote as I swung downhill. The sense of being alone filled me with a particular gladness. I looked up at the sun and quickened my pace. I saw a nameless river from a hilltop. The molasses black stream flowed by 100 yards away. For a long time I stood still, watching every moment below and scanning the far bank of the river. I descended stealthily until I came to a mora tree which leaned over the river. I hid my balata pouch between the roots and crouched down to wait. Pause here and read the extract carefully on your own. Here we have the passage on the left, the questions on the right. The expression, "this bush does reduce you to an animal," lines 1 and 2, implies that shark would C. Be forced to adopt the instincts of an animal. So this bush, this forest he's in, when you're in it, you have to think like an animal, move like an animal. Eat like an animal is madness. Walk on all fours, that's just CSEC trying to be funny. And hunt for prey like an animal for survival, that might be a close one. But in general, it's not just about hunting for prey, it's about adopting the instincts overall of an animal. You have to move like an animal, be as stealthy as an animal, hunt like an animal in order to survive in this place. 32. The advice given to shark in the first sentence was meant to warn him that pretty easy. There were things he did not yet know about life. What is the advice? Don't take it to heart, shark. Life's got plenty of lessons to teach you. So if life has plenty of lessons to teach you, then obviously you don't know everything about life as yet. So these are all about just about the actual forest and things you need to learn about the forest. But this piece of advice is talking about life in general. 33. The forest darkened. Lines 6 to 7 suggests that we can easily eliminate B and C. If the forest is darkened, it's not just about the trees creating shadows. We get the imagery that they're not just shadows, but there's darkness here. Shadows would mean there's also light and darkness. You need light for shadows to be created. So either the sun had set by this time or the trees were blocking out the sunlight. But we can actually eliminate A because the sun had not yet set by this time. How do we know this? Down in stanza 3, I looked up at the sun. So the sun had not yet set. He was hurrying because he wanted to get out of this place and reach nameless river before the sun had set. So up here the sun had not yet set, which means it's D. Trees were just blocking out the sunlight. 34. The phrase molasses black in line 12 describes this is a giveaway. Molasses black as molasses, the color of the water. The molasses black stream. The stream is as black as molasses. So molasses black means very black. Molasses is also thick, but it didn't say molasses thick, it said molasses black. 35. The conclusion we may draw about shark scanning the far bank in line 13 is that he was examining carefully. So we see here he stood for a long time. He stood still, watching every movement and scanning the far bank. So it couldn't be just glimpsing. And he's not peering through the bushes. And he's definitely not looking at trees nearby. He's examining carefully. 36. The phrase is scanning the far bank in line 13. Hid my balata pouch in line 14 and crouched down in line 15. Show that shark is He's being very careful. He's examining, he's scanning, he's hiding his pouch, he's crouching. He's obviously expecting someone who is not a friend. He's preparing. He's not necessarily expecting an attack because he is the one crouching, hiding, being stealthy. So he would be the one attacking, perhaps. So he's not expecting an attack from animals. He's definitely not looking for a friend. And he's not searching for a place to set up camp. He's expecting someone or something that is unfriendly. 37. Based on the extract, the only feeling shark did not experience is satisfaction. He did feel fear. He speaks about the fear he feels here. The only fear I knew was something. So he was afraid. He felt alone, the sense of being alone. He felt anticipation. Throughout basically the entire passage, he's anticipating, he's expecting. Yeah. But the passage really did not reach the point where he felt any satisfaction. 38. The concluding sentence of this extract. A suggests that shark expected someone or something to appear at any moment. And we actually saw a hint of this in a previous question. When you look at 36, expecting someone who is not a friend, the same thing comes back around in 38. I hid my balata pouch between the roots and crouched down to wait. So in his pouch is perhaps his knife, and he's crouching down waiting. Why would he be crouching waiting? Because he knows, or he's expecting, that someone is going to appear at any moment, and that person will not be here for a conversation. 39. Which of the following suggested titles best suits the extract? I think this is a tricky question. These could all be possible titles, but which one best suits it? I think Nameless River. The entire extract is really shark heading toward and anticipating Nameless River. Nameless River seems to be the place where something interesting is going to happen. Maybe there's going to be a showdown or something like that. Maybe he's going to face his fear, prove himself. I don't know. But Nameless River is pretty important throughout the extract. Lessons in life, not really. We don't see him really learning many lessons. We know that he has lessons that he needs to learn, but we don't see him learning these lessons throughout the extract. He's not lost, and he's tracking in the bush is close, but he's heading toward Nameless River. This seems to be the central. This seems to be the destination of the traveler shark. Okay, we move down to items 40 through 47. As usual, I'll read the passage and then you can pause and read it on your own. Of all the terrifying circumstances to which one's home is vulnerable, nothing equals the experience of having a guest who stares straight at one's bookshelves. It is not the possibility that he is judging one's taste that is frightening, but the fact that one's sense of discrimination is exposed by one's books. Indeed, most people would prefer to see the guest first scan, then peer and turn away in boredom or disapproval. Too often the eyes, dark with calculation, shift from title to title, as from girl to girl in an overheated dance hall. Nor is that the worst. It is when those eyes stop moving that the heart too stops. The guest's body twitches. His hand floats up to where his eyes have led. There is nothing to be done. You freeze. He smiles. You hear the question even as it forms. Would you mind if I borrowed this book? Mind? Why should I mind? The fact that I came upon that book in a Paris bookstall in April 1959, the 13th, I believe it was, the afternoon, it was drizzling, that I found it after searching all Europe and North America for a copy, that it is dog-eared at passages that mean more to my life than my heartbeat. Should I mind that you seek to take all that away, that I will undoubtedly never get it back? Then even if you actually return it to me one day, I will be wizened, you cavalier. and the book spoiled utterly by your mishandling? Mind? Not at all. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks, I'll bring it back next week. No rush, take your time. Liar. Not that there is any known way to avoid these exchanges. One has books, one has friends. They're bound to meet. Charles Lamb, who rarely complained, waxed livid on the subject. You're borrowers of books, those mutilators of collections, spoilers of the symmetry of shelves, and creators of odd volumes. But how are such people to be put off? The non-return of borrowed books is a custom as old as books themselves. Still, this custom contradicts nature. In every other such situation, the borrower becomes a slave to the lender. This is certainly true with money. Yet it is not at all true with books. For some reason, a book borrower feels that a book, once taken, is now his own. This removes both memory and guilt from the transaction. Making matters worse, the lender believes it too. Alright, we have the passage on the left, the questions on the right. We'll start with question 40. According to the writer, in lines 1 to 9, what is the most frightening thought that occurs when a guest stares at your bookshelves? Answer B. He would ask to borrow one of your favorite books. You see the writer mention some bad things that would happen when someone stares at your bookshelf, but then it says the worst of all of these possibilities is this particular question. Would you mind if I borrowed this book? So the writer fears someone asking to borrow one of his books, particularly one of his favorite books, of course. 41. The guest looks from title to title, as from girl to girl in an overheated dance hall. Lines 5 to 6. This comparison is intended to suggest a feeling of your answer, A. So imagine someone enters your house, you're a collector of books, you're a book connoisseur, you love your books, you have your favorite books on your bookshelf. This person comes in and they're looking at your books intently. You know that they're just going to ask this question. They're going to want to borrow one of your books, and so the anticipation is building up as they're looking from one title to the next, as one would look at the girls in an overheated dance hall, perhaps trying to choose which one to approach or to dance with. 42. The writer uses a series of short sentences in lines 7 to 8 to suggest his feeling of okay, this one has to be apprehension. He's apprehensive. Let's look at these sentences. The guest's body twitches. His hand floats up to where his eyes have led it. There is nothing to be done. You freeze. He smiles. You hear the question even as it forms. So we can imagine that this person just watching their friend come in and stare at the bookshelf, and they're just waiting for this question. They do not want this question to be asked, but they know it's an inevitable question. It will be asked. And so we can imagine they're just going through these anxious thoughts, just awaiting the inevitable, just anticipating. And of course, this anticipation brings with it great apprehension, because he does not want to lend anyone his book, obviously. So apprehension is the only possible answer here. It's definitely not pleasure or disbelief, and he's certainly not excited. 43. The writer in paragraph 2, lines 10 through 15, describes in detail how he obtained the book in order to Alright, let's take a look at the paragraph so we can find out why he describes the detail. So we already know what's happening in paragraph 1. He's giving us the narrative of someone coming into his house, looking at his bookshelf, asking to borrow his book. Of course, we know that he does not want to lend anyone his book. So let's see. Mind? Why should I mind? And he details how he obtains the book. He came upon the book in a Paris bookstall, so he got this book in Paris. Very exotic. And look at it. He tells us when he got it. Perhaps this is a long time ago. April 1959. He remembers the date the year and the date. Well, perhaps he remembers the date, which means this is a very important book to him. If you obtain a book and you remember when and where you got it, it means it's a very important book. He even remembers what time of day it was and that it was drizzling. He found it after searching all of Europe and North America. So he was searching everywhere for a copy of this book. We see that it is dog-eared at passages that mean more to him than his heartbeat. So he has been reading this book and he marks important passages with dog ears. And the dog ear suggests that he would have been reading this book for many, many years. He has read it many, many times. And the passages in the book mean a lot to him. So all of this is obviously telling us why he's so attached to the book. He's attached to the book because of all of this. All he went through to get the book and all that the passages in the book mean to him. It could not be B to make the guest aware of how he came to own the book because he's not telling the guest all of this. This is happening in the speaker's mind. We know that it's happening in the speaker's mind because of the brackets that appear at the beginning and end of the paragraph. And we know that he certainly did mind lending out this book. And D is just completely out of the question. All right, let's go to 44. The word mind in line 15, that's here. The word mind in line 15 is written in italics because the author wishes to emphasize. It has to be A, how much he minds lending his book to his friend. So we know that he's being, in his head, he's being quite sarcastic in how he says this. Mind? Why would I mind? Of course I mind. Look at what happens at the beginning of the paragraph. Mind? Why should I mind? So this is sarcastic. Why should I mind? This rhetorical question, this internalized rhetorical question. It's sarcastic because he goes on in the entire paragraph to tell us why he would mind. So he definitely minds. And then at the end, he comes back to mind. So he's saying mind to really highlight how much he actually minds lending out the book. It's as if someone knows that you haven't eaten all day and they ask, are you hungry? Hungry? Why would I be hungry? Of course, you're being sarcastic to highlight just how hungry you obviously are. And it couldn't be B because actually none of what is said here is said to his friend. Not just the mind here, but nothing here is said to his friend. This is all thought. So it doesn't have anything to do with the mind being italicized. If that were the case, the entire paragraph would have been italicized. The italics have nothing to do with the history of the book. And of course, D is completely out because we know that he does mind lending his book to his friend. 45. In line 19, the writer uses square brackets to indicate that the word in these brackets this one's a bit tricky, but the answer is C. Liar contradicts the words that are not in brackets. Lines 16 through 18. So we have his thought process here. This is what he's thinking. This is the actual conversation that would have occurred, or it could even be an imagined conversation. The conversation that the speaker imagines he would have with his friend. Basically, the question is, would you mind if I borrowed this book? His friend asks him, would you mind if I borrowed this book? He says, not at all. Hope you enjoy it. His friend says, thanks, I'll bring it back next week. And then he says, no rush, take your time. Based on how much he loves his book, we know that this is a lie. He does not want to lend his friend the book. He doesn't want his friend to be enjoying his book. He wants to keep his book for himself. And no rush is definitely a lie because even if he wouldn't mind lending his friend the book, he would want this book back as soon as possible. So these are all lies. And this is in square brackets to show us that what he's saying is not true. He's basically calling himself a liar here. 46. One has books, one has friends. They're bound to meet. Lines 20 to 21. This statement implies that it is bound to meet. This means they have to meet, they must meet. So it is inevitable. This means it cannot be stopped, it cannot be helped. It's inevitable that books will be borrowed by one's friends. That's exactly what bound to meet means. You have books, you have friends, they're going to meet. Friends will borrow your books. And everything else is just madness. This one is easy. 47. According to the writer, which of the following is true? Another giveaway has to be D. The borrower of books becomes a slave to the lender. That is directly stated in the text. We see in the final paragraph here. Still, this custom contradicts nature. And the custom here is the non-return of books. People not giving your book back. And this custom, it's unnatural for us. It's unusual. Because in every other situation, the borrower becomes a slave to the lender. For example, when you're dealing with money, if you borrow money from someone, the lender is basically the master of the one who borrows. But we see that it's not the case with books. With books, it is reversed. So instead of the person lending the book being the master, it's the person borrowing the book that is the master. And we see it explained here. A borrower feels that a book once taken is now his own. So someone borrows a book, they become the master because they basically take ownership of the book. And the lender actually believes that the borrower has become the master as well. And the others can be eliminated quite quickly. The borrower of the books never raises the question of money. This has nothing at all to do with anything in the passage. The borrower of books only returns the books because of a sense of guilt. The borrower does not return the books according to the passage. The borrower is more inclined to remember books than money. Not at all. This is not spoken of in the passage. And that's it for this passage. Let's move to the final passage of this paper. We'll be answering items 48 through 55. This is an open request to try to find who is the brain behind traffic management in Paulo. Does anybody know? I have tried traffic branch, not them. Highways, not them. Planning and development, not them. In fact, nobody wants to take responsibility for certain decisions and the mess that results. For example, Mission Road was made one way, north to south. Great idea. It worked, no traffic jams. In fact, many people were charged for going the wrong way up a one-way street. Then suddenly it's back to two-way and traffic foresaw. Same is true of Stoke Street. Somebody changed the stop signs at the corner for a few weeks. Then they changed it back. Nobody knows why. But the best is Celestial Road in St. John, which is wrecker heaven. Somebody made this road, which, apart from Broadway, is the widest street in Paulo, and no parking street, either side, anytime, and the wrecker is profiting from this. There are 4 major office buildings on this road, all of which provide underground parking for staff. So some, usually the lower paid, have to park elsewhere, and these are the cars the wrecker is taking away all day, every day. Again, the small man suffers. Oh, there's an exception. If you have a Canadian High Commission sticker, you can park and the wrecker will not touch your diplomatic car. Maybe we could all become diplomats. Then again, the 2 narrowest streets in Paulo allow parking. Try Delino Street off Abbey Lane. You can hardly pass. Who is the brain behind this mess? It seems the more cars we put on the road, the less parking somebody wants to allow. Who is this brain? No doubt a small man with a big car who has no name. Alright, let's go on to 48. The writer uses the word brain in line 1. The writer's use of the word brain in line 1 is meant to obviously the writer is being sarcastic. He actually thinks whoever is making these decisions, whoever is behind traffic management, is doing a poor job, and he's really complaining about how ridiculous a job this person is doing. So brain here is very sarcastic, and he's actually making fun of the decisions. What he means is brainless. Whoever is doing this, whoever is making these decisions, must be an idiot. So he's actually making fun of the decisions. None of these make any sense at all. When the writer repeats "not them" in paragraph 1, he implies that this one is easy. No one wants to take responsibility for the traffic situation. So he's asking around, he's trying to find who is responsible for making these traffic decisions. Is it the traffic branch? Nope, not them. Highways? Nope, not them. Planning and development? Nope, not them. He makes it clear nobody wants to take responsibility for certain decisions and the mess that results. Number 50. Stoke Street in line 7. Celestial Road in line 9. And Delino Street in line 17 can best be described as these are clearly examples to support the writer's case. He's citing many examples of roads where there are traffic problems. There are problems on Stoke Street, problems on Celestial Road, problems on Delino Street. The traffic management, whoever's making these decisions, they're doing a poor job, and the poor job can be seen on these 3 roads. So these are examples of the poor job that the traffic management, whoever that is doing. So there are examples supporting his case. And these answers are clearly wrong. I don't think there's any need to go into them. 51. The writer's tone can be described as A, B, and C might look close. It's definitely not complimentary. It's not complimenting anyone here. It's quite the opposite. The writer's tone. So the tone throughout the entire extract. How does the writer sound? How does the writer's voice sound? Is he puzzled? I mean, he asks many questions. He can't find out who is responsible. He can't understand why these decisions are being made. So you could say that he's puzzled. But is that the main tone? Look at how he's trying to find the brain behind the traffic management. And of course, by asking these questions and by saying not them, not them, not them, it's really not a case of him simply not knowing or him being puzzled about who is responsible. He's simply, through sarcasm, the answer is sarcasm, highlighting the fact that no one wants to take responsibility for what's happening. There is sarcasm throughout the entire extract. We could say that he's resigned, meaning he has given up. He feels hopeless. But the main tone throughout the entire extract is a sarcastic one. We even see sarcasm at the very end. Who is the brain? He puts brain in quotes just to be super sarcastic. Who is the brain behind this mess? Who is this brain? No doubt a small man with a big car who has no name. So the brain is basically someone being paid a lot of money, and there's some big boss in a nice office who is actually an idiot. We see more sarcasm here. Wrecker heaven. We see more sarcasm here. Great idea. It worked. No traffic jams. All sarcastic. Almost every sentence in this extract is sarcastic. You can't miss the sarcasm here. So the main tone, the overall tone, is one of sarcasm. Let's move on to 52. The last sentence of the letter is similar to paragraph 5 because both of them answer B. Express disgust. He's really disgusted by what's going on. Look at this. Oh, there's an exception. If you have a Canadian High Commissioner sticker, you can park and the wrecker will not touch your diplomatic car. He's disgusted at the power and prestige that these diplomats have, these quote-unquote diplomats, because they're actually idiots. And then he says here, sarcastically of course, maybe we could all become diplomats. So he's basically saying the people in power, the big rich guys, they're the only ones who are not affected by the traffic problems. So they have no incentive to fix the problem. Disgusted at how they're behaving and how they're taking advantage of the common people. At the end here, we see more disgust. Here's where we see the most disgust. He's disgusted at the fact that whoever's making these stupid decisions is actually someone who's benefiting. They have a big car, and of course they're anonymous, so they're not being held accountable. They're not having to take responsibility for their actions. So disgust. There are no rhetorical questions in this paragraph here. The last line, as well as this paragraph, do mention cars, but that is not why these two pieces of the extract are similar. That is not the important similarity. And of course, we know that no compliments are being offered here. 53. The letter was most likely published in a. Okay, this is pretty obvious, a newspaper. This sounds like a letter to the editor, a letter of complaint that would have been written to a local newspaper. It could not be a press release because this isn't a company or an office or anything like that releasing information. Certainly could not be a tourist brochure, and school magazine is just madness. 54. The author of the passage is most likely a. Motorist. Obviously he is affected. He sounds very passionate, so he's a motorist, perhaps, which means he's one of the persons driving who has to deal with the traffic problems. Pedestrians don't necessarily have to deal with the problems that motorists have to deal with, since they're on foot. Traffic warden, no, he's not in charge of traffic. He doesn't have any power. He's just a regular guy with a car, and he's certainly not one of the government officials. In fact, he's criticizing the government officials. Last one here. Again, the small man suffers in line 14. Implies that the small man is often. Obviously, disadvantage. They're taking advantage of the small man. The small man is the one facing the disadvantage here. Let's move on to the final piece of this 2017 puzzle. I will not read the poster. I'll just allow you guys to pause the video here, read it carefully, and then we'll go through the questions. Here we are, 56. According to the information provided, the main theme of the symposium is adolescent health. We can see this right throughout. Let's take a look. Topic, adolescent health, big giveaway. We also see that students in medical sciences and healthcare professionals should attend, and the sessions that will be held by the experts in their field all deal with health. HIV/AIDS by this doctor, and other STDs by this doctor, alcohol and other drugs, all of these deal with health. So health is the main theme of the symposium. 57. Which of the following groups is not a sponsor of the symposium? Okay, this is a simple fact question. The Ministry of Health, we can look here, we'll see the sponsors. Ministry of Youth, present. Conference of Churches, present. National Council on Drug Abuse, present. Ministry of Health, absent. 58. Which of the following words can best replace symposium in the advertisement? This is a simple vocabulary test. A symposium is a conference. That's pretty much it. 59. How can those who want to participate register for the event? This one actually tricked me. I thought it was D on first glance, but this is the Ministry of Youth. This is saying the Ministry of Health. So how do you participate? You contact this person at the Ministry of Youth. So that's A. And finally, all of the following groups are specifically invited to attend except the answer is C, parents of young people. We see youth groups are invited, members of the public are invited, and doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers are invited. In fact, some of them will be presenting. And of course, they are healthcare professionals. All right, that's it for the 2017 May paper.